or how I can help you most right now based on what you see in my content. How did you find Sales Remastered, by the way?
Honestly, it was just one day I was on YouTube, I was doing some searches, and then I saw one of your videos popped up, and I was like, wow, it has to do so much with my field because I was looking up, how could I get better in my field? And
Right.
I was finding more, like Grant Cardone videos like that. It's not really pertaining into the sales that I'm in.
Okay.
So then I found your contact, about loan officer sales, what we can do to improve and help. So that's how I really found you, and I've been, I followed you on obviously all the platforms, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, and it's really been helping me out, to be honest with you.
So where do you find most value from? Like, is it just like the emotional technique and how to connect with them on a different level?
Basically, yeah, because what I'm personally in now, I'm in my third month of being a loan officer.
Got it.
I work for a
Okay.
okay. So this is my third month in, and what we're really doing now is like we're practically cold calling in a sense.
Hmm.
So we're reaching out to this clientele. But one thing I really feel like I struggle with the most is like the pitch in a sense, and trying to gain these people's business.
Right.
So one thing I've noticed, a lot of times they'll get blown off saying, "Oh, I'm not interested," this, that, and they'll hang up right away, so where you can't really rebuttal in a sense.
Right.
So then that's one thing that's I think I need to work on. And then sometimes actually keeping that clientele with you throughout the entire process, even though you have to break sometimes
Sure.
bad news like, "Oh, your appraisal came up short," things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
one thing I feel like I need to kind of get better in, building a bigger pipeline as well because I'm fairly new to this business. I'm
Got it.
young. I'm only 19 years old. You
Okay.
know, so
Well, it's a good business to be in,
oh yeah, of course, I
especially
love it. I
yeah,
love it. Don't
yeah,
get me wrong. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
great. Yeah.
yeah, and it really does give you an opportunity to build a book of business. So as young as you are right now, if you do it right, you're going to deal with the same clients for years and years to come. You know what I mean?
Of course, of course.
But I got a question for you with the way that you're getting your leads in right now. Are you the first initial contact, or is it going through like a dialer to a
It's
CSR and then you?
it's going through a dialer system.
Okay,
So it's practically more like credit inquiries where there was a credit check for it.
good, nice.
So the credit was mostly pulled for mortgage refinance. Sometimes you
Yep,
get, oh no, it was pulled for a car,
yep,
credit card,
yep.
things like that.
And
So
so
that's
the way you
yes.
got that trigger inquiry is because they used to be with you, like they did a loan with you in the past, or are you just buying trigger leads from the credit bureaus?
It's basically trigger leads, yes.
Okay, cool. So I got a lot of experience with that, primarily with portfolio triggers, right?
Hmm.
But what I do know is that with the trigger lead, it's an inquiry that comes from anything. So it could be, a credit card application, a car application, right? They might have
Right.
applied for life insurance. And so it's not necessarily means of them applying for credit, but most of the
Right.
time they are applying for credit, right? And so it's really just based on like how your initial approach is with them.
Right.
Where like I've seen both angles. One angle come in where they're like, hey, we just received an inquiry on the account that we had for you back in 2014. And we just want to make sure that you receive, that you authorize that request. And if you ever are in a position with that, because I don't know how big your portfolio is, if you happen to work with a past client, but I would definitely consider learning how to work with your company's past clients, right? Especially with like
Right.
departed agents, and I'll cover that a little bit later. But what I found was that when you're approaching someone who's done a credit inquiry, the chances are is that they're applying for credit is because they need something, whether it's as small as like a little finance on a credit card or like a home improvement loan. And so, my content, if you watch the last, it was 4 video series on how to cold call. It
Yeah, I
was
saw
really,
that one.
yeah, it was really based on bringing some sort of initial kind of insider information. And the
Hmm.
reason why insider information is helpful is because you're trying to put them to consider two and two, right? And so if we assume that they applied for like a credit line, is because they didn't necessarily have the money available, right, to buy it outright, and so they're
Right.
they're relying on credit. And if I knew that they, let's say, the criteria of that inquiry, because I'm gonna do homework first, and that's probably, maybe the disadvantage of having it connected right away from a dialer is because it's game on, right? You don't
Right.
necessarily know what state it is, what street it is, and so you're kind of being thrown in the mix. But if in the event that you do get a chance to at least do some research, you can create a lot of inside value that you could deliver them, right? And so in your
Right.
case, how I would adapt it to your process is because you're being connected to them right away, and it's game on in essence. There's two things you got to pay attention to: is their street name. I imagine you should have their street name.
Hmm.
Depending on your CRM, if you have their county name, and when you when you have a tonality that you're just contacting them as a courtesy call, and there's going to be a courtesy report being done in their area. Let's say their street name was Wilson, right? Like I used in that example. Wilson, with in your on Wilson Street within the community of Orange County or wherever county it is, and say this is just a courtesy report. We do a lot of business within your area, and we're notifying homeowners of different eligibilities that they're available to in 2018. I'd highly leverage 2018 right now. I'd highly leverage things that our prospects already see in the media, like the
Right.
tax reform, the new information on equity lines of credit. You know what I mean? Because these help us kind of funnel them in the correct direction that we want them to go. But
Right.
when we come in with like, hey, I'm just sending you a courtesy report, what it's going to do is it's going to show you what your property would appraise for, and you don't even need to do an appraisal. So this actually is pretty helpful. A lot of our clients love it, and we've opened it up to your community, right? So this is just an
Right.
automatic release. And they may say, well, how did you get my contact information? Say, well, actually, we were in contact with you a while back, but we didn't have the opportunity to actually work with you. And so as our recognition is becoming more saturated in your area, right? We want to make sure that you're kept aware of these updates that our clients in your neighborhood are aware of. And when you try to bring it in as a community thing, then they'll invite it in a little bit more. Does that make sense?
Right, right. I got you there. So like one thing with my initial approach, it'll be like, so let's say your name's Daniel. It'll be like, hi, is Daniel available? Da, da, da. Yes. Hey Daniel, this is. How are you? Okay. And then we'll go. Hey Daniel, I was just calling in regards to the refinance you're working on. And then obviously then jump right in. What were you looking to do? Lower the rate or pull some cash out? And that
Okay,
that
so
wouldn't
you
be my
are you
initial.
assuming that the inquiry is a refinance?
Yes, sir.
Got it. And so sometimes they might say, I'm not doing a refinance.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. So those are two things that are there's two things that are going to kill the momentum of that engagement, right? The very
Hmm.
first thing is when you say actually, it's unorthodox, it's untraditional, but when you say your company's name and then you ask the question like, how are you, right?
Okay.
That you're immediately positioning them to think of an excuse. Does that make sense?
Right.
And
Right.
so and so when they're in the train of thought of thinking of an excuse, you've triggered a reaction from them to not want to engage. Does that make sense?
Right.
So if
Hmm.
we contacted the same prospect, let's say it's Daniel, hey Daniel, I'm just actually sending you a quick courtesy report. You're within a community that we're actually notifying homeowners because we have a lot of clients in Orange County. And I just want to make sure that this email is valid. It's actually going to be sent. It's going to have your street address in the subject line. So there's a tonality to it, right? It's as
Right.
if it's already on its way.
Right.
And now they can't necessarily fight that, but I'll never give them control by asking them a question. If I do
I,
ask a question, I'll just confirm it's an email address, right? And then
hmm.
that invites them to say, well, you go, yeah, what's this report about? And I want them to ask me what the report's about, but it's inside information, and I'm not giving them any insight of, hey, I'm calling about the mortgage or refinance that you're applying for, because if I said that and they're not applying for refinance, they're gonna be like, whoa, who's using my information?
Right.
Does that
Exactly.
make
That
sense?
that's what I've noticed. I've gotten a lot, and there's like, oh, I didn't even inquire about a refinance. Then boom, obviously
Right.
lost a potential client.
Right.
So
And so if you put them in that state, then for sure there's going to be no chance of you moving forward, right? And
right.
so
Exactly.
and so what you'll do in that process or using that process is actually put yourself in a state where you're doing more defense,
Hmm.
right? Where you're actually defending yourself more rather than offense and just saying, hey, I'm just giving you a quick courtesy report. But the reason why that tonality works is because typically when they get contacted, they're not expecting your call, right? And
Right.
so as a consumer, they'll do a quick analysis. for those who even pick up the phone, right? A lot of them will just forward it to voicemail. And then that
Right.
sets you to another campaign, which if you're crafty enough, it'll give you the opportunity. I don't know how it works on your CRM, but if you get to claim the lead and maximize the potential from your current CRM. So CRMs have like drip campaigns, right? And do
Right.
you know what a drip campaign is?
I actually do not.
No worries. So get to know what a drip campaign is. It's going to help you with your book of business. It's going to help you with farming leads because sometimes you're not going to flip a lead with for maybe a year, right? But that
Right.
doesn't mean you should lose contact with that lead. And so what a drip campaign does, or what a drip system does, is it's basically a CRM sending an email from. It looks like it's from you. Does that make so right? It's automatic. And so for every month or every quarter, it'll check in with like a fun fact. Like, hey, here's
Okay.
five things that, here's five, like we have one where it's like 10 ways to clean your kitchen. And it's, it's so random, right? But consistently, because that drip is effective, I'm getting a lot of responses from clients that I never even thought of. But
Right.
past clients, right? And so they'll reply back to one that says five facts about your credit score, and then they'll reply back and say, hey, I was just thinking about refinancing, but I never even sent that email. It was my drip campaign.
Right.
Got it?
Okay. I got you. I see how
So,
that works now.
yep. So you could set different campaigns where it's campaigns for past clients, and then you'll have a specific drip campaign. If your CRM doesn't have that, you can actually create it through Outlook. Do you
Okay.
guys use Outlook?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So with Outlook, you know how you could save your signatures?
Yeah.
Okay, in your cycle, right, you're consistently going to face either voice messages, or you're going to send them the complimentary insider report, right? And so these are
Right.
two consistent messages. And so if you save them as a signature, right, just very vague statement, and then you modify the name, right? Like, hey, Jim, and then you just drop signature retention one or credit pool one, right? It's like the name of the signature. It auto populates. Does that make
Right.
sense? And so it saves you a good 5 minutes or 2 minutes, and then you send it on its own way. When they reply back, you have another signature already preset. And so it's saying like, yeah, go ahead and send me the report, right? Say, okay, cool. I'll go ahead and send that over to you right now. Just a quick confirmation. This is your primary home. Just some initial kind of immediate information. And like one of the questions would be, if I can improve your term, what would you use the monthly savings for? Right? And so
Right.
then it'll get them thinking like, oh, I could use it for home improvements, or I can use it for debt consolidation. And that's really what you're doing, is you're just opening up the dialogue. But create some
Right.
sort of system where you're able to farm it and keep it in your CRM to attach later. Because those don't, you never want to think, you want to get out of the mindset of what can I do this month? What can I do this month? Right? It's
Right.
always like, how can I build? Yeah.
Exactly, and that's one thing, I've kind I've come across time, watching videos. I see how you open it up, like, oh, you want to lower the rate in payment. So what initially would you benefit off of lowering your payments? Oh, I have some high credit card debt. Then boom, that opens up another window. Well, hey, there's some equity in the home. Why don't you just pull some cash out instead to obviously consolidate all your debt? So I've seen has been working as well, because that obviously, like you said, it opens up a new window of conversation with the clientele.
Yeah. But which you bring up a good point. It's important also with the timing that you use certain words, right?
Of course, of
Because some
course.
of our consumers like the way that they would react, where if we told them about a refinance application, they might think, well, who's using my credit? Who's it's my
Exactly.
identity. It's because they're triggered from things that they see in their own atmosphere, their own environment. And so when we say certain things like, well, why don't you cash out your equity, they're going to be triggered to what they may heard in their circle. So like cash out's bad, right? Don't
Right.
use your equity. And these are things that they're getting from people that they care about, right? Like their family. Like we as family, we tell people what to do to be safe, right?
Right.
And so if the market's up and they're like, oh yeah, if they had a friend who tried to do refinance, but the rates are high, they're going to remember that, right? And so like, oh yeah, I
Right.
want to do cash out, but the rates are high. Oh yeah, my friend Judy wants to do cash, and the thing that triggered it was cash out. It's the name, and
Right.
so if we say certain names or programs that trigger reaction, like cash out or debt consolidation, they may have a negative. reply back.
Right. It's gonna
So
sway them away. I see what you're saying.
does that make sense? So
Right.
what's better is that the immediate, like how you're doing with if I were to help you improve your term, what would that look like? What would you do with the monthly savings? And then they say, oh, I do this and that, right? And say,
hmm
okay, well, based on your current situation, how are you able to get by? Like, how much do you have left for yourself? And you're trying to figure out how much what their total, net is, right?
Right.
And then elaborate on that and go a little bit more. So if they want to talk more and more about it, let them talk, right? But don't
Mm,
offer the solution until we get information we need, right?
I
Because
got you.
because that offer that we would usually offer right away, like, well, how come you don't just pay off any debt and you'll save $500? We will try and pitch them right there, but the rapport is not there yet.
Right.
Makes sense.
Right.
And
hmm
and so if you go on and you learn a little bit more, what you'll find is you actually collect more and more leverage. And all the pieces of leverage that you pick up, anytime they show resistance, like, oh, I don't want to give you any personal information, or I don't have time, I'm not in the market, then you can refer back to those points of leverage, the benefit, the pain, right? And say, oh,
Right.
you know what, I completely get it, but since you mentioned that, you're paying $500 in credit card debt right now, or you don't have assets in the bank or no cash in the bank, I had an idea and I was thinking about sending it over to you. So here, let's do this. Let me confirm real quick, right? And then bring them right back into the application. What you want to avoid is you want to avoid asking question, like asking if you can proceed, right? Always try to
Right.
almost force them, like you're the tour guide and you're bringing them towards the end.
Exactly.
Yep, yep,
I'll always try to pivot through that. Always finish with like I guess a question in sense like once you confirm like okay yeah we're gonna be using this that I'm sorry right now but so let's say we're gonna be using
okay,
the money to consolidate for this. Okay, now boom, jump into that. Now what's the rate you're paying for currently? And obviously just keep going through, make it not even seem like you're taking the application on them.
correct.
You know
Yes, yes, very important. It has to sound like an initial conversation.
exactly.
And I prefer, like, when you look at the 1003, the declaration is actually at the end of the
hmm
conversation, typically, right? It's right before the hamda. And
Right,
so, like, I always did the declaration. I noticed that I would do it at the very beginning because it would help me siphon which direction I can go to. And so if I can't talk conventional with someone because they had a bankruptcy or foreclosure, this was important over the last 4 years because a lot of people were affected by the collapse of the market, right? And
right,
so they're
right.
fairly seasoned from bankruptcies and foreclosures. And a lot of times when people are pulling credits, like they're abusing their credit, they're financing everything. And so
Right,
sometimes they could be like in a real bad spot where you can't even help them anyway. And that's what
right,
brings up later on, right? Like when you're running into issues like debt to income ratios, or you run an issue because the value was too high, right? Came in low, and then you got a pricing adjustment, and then you got to go sell them again, right? And
right.
so and so what we notice in the process of, we just got to pay attention to in the forefront. So if we have been bit before on a value coming too high, then our next round we're just going to do a little bit more diligent work on being more realistic, right? And
Right.
even if like this, the borrower, because the a borrower or our prospects are always going to believe their house is worth more,
Of
right?
course.
And so we have to just have a plan B. And so if you see comps that support, let's say, 250 for a value, but they're adamant that they're at 300, just have a backup plan for 250. Does that make sense?
Right.
But that can also become leverage for you to say, well, let's find out. Let's get the report. I can have an appraiser out there by this weekend. That makes sense.
hmm
But again, it's selective timing on when you show your cards. And I think of that series, I did a release on a video yesterday. It was like, man, I forgot the name of the video, dude.
It
But
was I think like the business book, right?
yeah, how to build a book of business, right?
Yep, yep.
But there was a portion where I was like, the rapport in itself has to be synced. It's like if you've ever watched that movie Avatar.
hmm
Have you ever watched it, Avatar?
I'm with the newest one.
No, it's an old movie. It's Avatar with the alien. Anyway, there's a point where he sinks, right, with his it's like his dry. It's a crazy movie. You got watch it. but he syncs with like his, I don't know, it's like his bird or whatever. He flies on a bird, and but until then they're at battle, right? And until they actually lock and sync, then they can actually build a relationship. And so that was the whole thesis about like connections or relationships. And so when you have a tonality right now, for example, where you're calling them about an application, your whole motive and energy is just about an application. Does that make sense?
Right. Right.
Whereas if you came from a position of, hey, I just want to send you some real good value, I think you'll like it. It's pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like almost like your friend, like when your friend has some gossip, right? And they're like, oh, dude, check this out, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you're like,
Right.
what? And so that's the natural reaction. So that's what we're teetering off of. And so I think you have the right ideas, like kind of what pain to look for, what
Hmm.
buy signs to look for. It's just a matter of positioning and kind of timing, right? So timing in essence of when you release certain information. Like I could pitch them within the first 3 minutes, but I'd prefer
Yeah.
rather to get all my nuts and bolts together and then present it at the right time where they need it most, you
That's what
know?
I've noticed as well. A lot of my clients, they tell me like, you don't even sound like a salesman. And they say
Yes.
that's why we like doing business with you, because you're not pushy. You don't want to push us. But like at the same time, I may be passive aggressive. But they say, it's not like I'm rushing them like other,
Yeah.
competitors are doing this, where I'm more calm. But like still at the same time, I'm pushing them, but they don't really see it as selling. You see what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Oh yeah, we're a lot alike. We're definitely a lot alike, man. When we sell, we're a consultant, right? And
Exactly.
and that's why they don't feel like they're being sold, and that's why my whole message of making noise in a different way. That's how you make noise in a different way, right? You just sound completely different. And the funny thing is that regardless of what Magnolia Bank pricing is, the prospect will buy from point of experience, like convenience, right? Like they really like the experience, they'll pay the premium, they don't care about the
Right.
price, right? And
Hmm.
so here's your opportunity to, when they mention that, when you hear like, oh man, I really like working with you, say, hey, no worries, I have been doing this for a very long time, because they don't know how young you are, right? Unless they actually see
Exactly.
you, unless you tell them and say, oh, I've only been doing it for a couple of months, and say, hey, you know what, I take a lot of pride in my service. I rely on my clients. And so this is not the first time we're going to work together. As a matter of fact, we're probably going to work together in the next 6 to 12 months after we deliver these benefits. And so why my clients choose to come back to me or refer other people to me, like their friends, their family, their coworkers, is because of the service that you're experiencing right now. And so
And the
now you're
rapport
putting it
you
back,
build with them.
yeah, and the report, and like, oh yeah, you know what? I can think of a family member, a friend, but you're also planting the seed of long-term relationship,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
those are money, if like, let's say if this is your second or third month, when you're about a year into it and you're doing it right, your next year is actually going to be a combination of the lead or the loans that you close this year. And so it's just this repeat business, right? And so
Right.
that's how you see veterans doing 20 to 30 per month, is because majority of that is referrals and redo business over the
Right.
years. And but the agents that I see who maximize their potential on this book of business is the way they initiate the connection. And so it sounds like you're doing it right, because they don't feel like they're being sold. And so they want to protect their people, and they don't want their people to be sold. So more than likely they'll get a referral to you, but
Exactly.
you have to be able to stay in front of them. And so that's
Exactly.
where a drip campaign, learn about your CRM, see if there is capabilities of a drip campaign, and create something that keeps you in front of your prospects, you know.
Gotcha. Yeah. And honestly, Lanny, like I said, you've been great help. I swear. I found you. I want to say a month ago. I even told my colleagues about you, and then like the things you put out there, it's been helping us a lot. Honestly, I just have to say thank you.
Man, I appreciate you. I appreciate the support. Glad you found the channel, man. And
Of course.
yeah, continue to share any of the content that you see with your colleagues, and also comment. Don't hesitate to put like, hey, this is my takeaway, or hey, can you elaborate on this more? And you'll see that I'll reply back, and I'll actually make the content. And
Right. Of
it
course.
keeps it
Of
new for
course.
me, so it's a win-win. And of course, the process is to build a brand, right? And to
Mhm.
be kind of that alternative resource. And so,
Exactly.
yeah, man, I appreciate you jumping on with me, and anytime we could probably set up another call, another time, and go through some other as you get a little bit more seasoned in your job.
That sounds great. I'll be sure to do so. You know, I'm always on top of my game.
Yeah, I
I
appreciate
look
your time,
forward.
brother. Have a good
Of course,
day.
talk to you soon, Danny. You too. Thank you.
All right, later.
Another Nick No Banger.